I am very honored to have with me today Steve Holder, author, man of faith, independent politician, running in Congressional First District of Tennessee. Um, Thanks for joining us today. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine, Dust. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So I guess we'll get right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got where you are today?
Okay, sure. Yes, I am an author. I have 8 books to my credit. Two of them are nonfiction. One of them is my autobiography. Uh, I'm getting into politics because I'm so sick and tired of the millionaires and the billionaires running everything, making all the decisions for us ordinary people. Uh, I've always been working class. I grew up working class. My dad was an insurance salesman. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and housewife. And I always had to work for a living. And these are the people that I respect. And I'm running for U.S. Congress because I want to do that. The Republican candidate, which is the favored one since this is Northeast Tennessee, the Republican capital of the world, it seems. I'm running as independent and I'm running to help the working people because nobody else seems to. And it needs to be done. Um, there's, as you know, millions and millions of Americans out of work right now due to the COVID 19, and the economy really, really sucks. Nothing seems to be going right, and somebody needs to come in and speak up for the working class. So that's what I'm trying to do, and I hope to get enough people listening to see that these rich politicians don't have our best interest at heart. And since I'm just a regular ordinary guy, then I can see where everybody's coming from who is struggling to make ends meet. I know what it's like to have to make decisions like, should I pay rent or should I pay these bills, or should I buy this amount of groceries or pay all of this over here? These are just things that are commonplace to a lot of people. Especially here in Northeast Tennessee, we have a lot of poverty, a great deal of poverty, even in the best of times. And this is, of course, not the best of times with all the unrest going on in the country with the COVID 19 and big election year and everything. Everything is all messed up. And, there needs to be some people that are willing to take the hits for the common people. Somebody to stand up and say, well, this is us and this is what we are going through. All you wealthy folks that just want to make laws for yourselves and benefit yourselves, you're not doing us any good. We need people working for the people. And that's where I come in. I'm trying my best to just be somebody to be there for the regular working class Americans. And I hope that I can do that.
Right on. That's inspiring. That you don't sound like most politicians.
Thank you.
Um, let's see. So tell us more about your stance. Everyone can go to your website. Can you remind us what the website is?
SteveHolderForCongress.com.
SteveHolderForCongress.com. I visited myself, and on your platform, you had a specific section dedicated to workers' rights. You talk a little bit more about that policy position.
Yes, I'd be glad to. As you know, the minimum wage has been what it is for, it seems like decades. I don't know exactly how many years, but it needs to be at least $15 an hour at the very least. Um, so many people, there was a time I've been told that when this American dream was actually a reality where one person working full time could actually support a family and they would do well. Nowadays, sometimes the both people, the man and the woman or whatever, are working their butts off and still can't get ahead. And that really, really sucks. And we need to raise the minimum wage. We need to do all we can to help people to get a better education. We need to do away with this student loan debt. Many people are in debt for decades after they get out of school. Some people never ever get out from under that debt. So, if we could work it out to where everybody could get free college and they wouldn't have to sign over their life to slavery just in order to pay the bills, that would be a big step in the right direction. And I'm also somebody that's pro union, which is not very popular in Northeast Tennessee. The millionaires, the big capitalist people that really, really own things and pretty much own the system, and the people that have to live under it, they make all these rules and we have to live by them. And things just ain't working out the way they're supposed to. It's supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's the way I learned it when I was going to school, but it's not the way it is anymore. It's the rich people, by the rich people, for the rich people, of the rich people, and the rest of you minions just follow along and shut the hell up and don't complain. Now, I hope I can change that in some way, or at least be a part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Right on. That's impressive. I mean, it wasn't always like that. There's a history of popular resistance going back to the Populist Party, militant labor union unionization, even as the greater Appalachia area of revolts going back to the 20s of working people. I mean, the term redneck was originally coined by white and black miners working together and putting red bandanas on to say that they're in the union and they're going against the bosses for the rights of the people. So you are a part of a long-standing American tradition, and I'm glad to see it. And so we'll move on to the next question. Can you tell on your website and your policy? You're also in favor of Medicare for all. Can you tell us a little bit about that stance?
Sure, absolutely. Our insurance system now, everybody or most people have insurance based on their jobs. And if they lose their employment, then 9 times out of 10, they lose their insurance and everything. And even people that have it have to pay sometimes an enormous amount just to keep that insurance, even after their employer pays part of it. So if everybody had insurance, if everybody had Medicare, the congressmen and the senators and all, they have great health care. They don't have to worry about any of it. So if we all had the health care that was provided, it was free, we wouldn't have to worry about paying for it. There wouldn't be so many people dying of illnesses just because they can't afford the care. There wouldn't be people afraid to go to the doctor just because they know they cannot pay for it. So if everybody had equal access to medical care and it didn't cost a fortune, if it were free like it should be, then there would be a lot more healthy people in the United States. There would be a whole lot more people ready, willing, and able to work and be productive. And just because people could actually do their jobs better because of being healthier, even that would help these rich, high powered capitalists. They should be able to see that. They should be, but apparently they're not. You know?
I think I've heard where there was jobs moving into Canada because they offer free healthcare here, and then offering healthcare here would be so expensive that instead of opening factories here, they opened those factories in Canada because it was cheaper because of the healthcare. I mean, there's I mean, just the figure. I mean, you're a person of faith. I mean, and you support the preservation of human life. Over 60,000 Americans die because they don't have access to this to life-saving healthcare that and then the preventative medicine. Wow, that's a great position. And even these so-called progressive Democrats and Bernie Sanders have gone back on their promise to the people and are supporting people that don't that don't. Does the Democrat in your district support Medicare for all? Are you?
Yes, yes, the Democrat candidate is supporting Medicare for all, and that's good. I'm glad that she is. Unfortunately, a Democrat doesn't have a chance of winning a U.S. Congress seat in Northeast Tennessee. And our district has been a Republican person elected for U.S. Congress since 1881. So, me as an independent, my chances are slim to none. And the Democrat candidate, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of others, has less chance than I do.
Wow.
So it's really a fight against the millionaire Republican candidate who she is a pharmacist of many, many years. Her husband spent 4 years in prison for
Hmm.
selling illegal drugs they
What's
got from
I mean,
China and selling it at an
there's
increased
I
price
mean,
here in America.
there's no reason to go too far into that, but I'm sure there's other issues that you can appeal to and relate with the people. How is that petition popular? Like, I know it's not within the establishment, the Republicans, but I think that the figure is 70% of Americans overall support Medicare for all or more. I think it might be up to three-fourths of Americans. Do people in your area support Medicare for all? Um,
Some do, but since, like I said, this is predominantly Republican, and for whatever reason, most of the people here just think that these rich Republican career politician types actually take care of us. I don't understand it. I don't see where they get that, but they'll keep voting for these rich Republicans over and over and over again. And it's just a cycle that seems to have no end and it has no place for any sanity. And anybody that tries to come into it talking any sense, they get shut down. And, I don't get any media attention here hardly because of that. It's the Republicans who have the media bought and paid for, and it's hard for anybody to talk about anything that really helps the ordinary people. We get shut down, we get shouted out, and we get, for example, we had a debate for the U.S. Congress candidates about a month ago. There was about, I think, maybe 20 of us all together. They allowed the six top money earners or collectors to be on that debate, and that was it. And they were all Republicans. Does that tell
wow.
you anything?
Yeah. um, so do you feel like they're shutting you out of the conversation? Do you feel like your
Absolutely.
democratic rights are being repressed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Most of my attention I have to do on social media. That's why I wanted to be on your show. I know that probably there's not a lot of people that know about your show here, but if I can share this on Facebook and Twitter, maybe I can help get my message out and maybe help you too. There are a lot of progressives here, but we just don't get a lot of attention. We have to kind of raise a ruckus any way that we can. Sometimes it means not being very polite, but we got to do what we got to do. I think you know what I mean.
I hear you. So I didn't find this specifically on your website. I asked you your position on foreign policy, And your response was, we should not interject ourselves in the politics of another country. That sounds really radical. You don't
Yeah,
you don't hear that. Can you talk a little bit more
well,
about that?
sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for people minding their own business. And we have plenty of things in America that we need to tend to. We have so much poverty. We have so much racism that's systemic that needs to be dealt with. We have this fascist regime running the White House now that needs to be dealt with. We have all kinds of infrastructure problems that need to be dealt with. We have the environmental issues that need to be dealt with here. We don't need to be meddling overseas and trying to do all of this nation building, as they call it, all of these things that putting the people in place that we want in place. And lots of times they ended up turning their backs on us. And we just need to focus on what we have to deal with on our own. We have plenty to do. Now, if a country has some kind of emergency, like a natural disaster or whatever, and they need some help from us, sure, I'm in favor of helping them out. But as far as this, just constantly and consistently spending billions and billions and billions of dollars in other countries, like we do with Israel, for example, not that I have anything against Israel, but we need to mind our own business and take care of our country. Now, not that I think we need to be an island to ourselves. We need to work with the United Nations to as much as we can, in my opinion. But mostly we need to take care of our own and not try to run the whole friggin' world. Make sense?
Yeah, great position, common sense, very poignant. It seems like a lot of the mainstream Democrats and Republicans seem to get their talking points from the CIA and large companies, and not from the interests of the people. Uh,
Yeah.
so, so I introduced you as a Christian. You mentioned you're Catholic. Can you tell us a little bit about how your faith influences your pursuits politically and your positions?
Sure. The whole basis for the Christian faith is about love, loving people, helping people, do what we can, to spread good joy and spread everything, just working together as a people. And what we now in America have what is called the religious right. And, they might be religious, but they're not right so much of the time. It's now we do have what we call the Christian left here in America, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. But, we're mostly people that believe in social justice. And that's what Jesus Christ was all about. The only ones he really had a problem with was those hypocrites that thought they were better than everybody else. So I'm all about helping people. I'm all about raising people up and helping where I can. And we all need to be focused on helping one another. It's not supposed to be about seeing how much money we can make and see how greedy we can be. And it seems like the most of the Christians in America these days, and I hate to say this, but most of them have sold out to this Donald Trump. I don't know, I call him the false Messiah because so many of them seems to think that he's the great leader that God has raised up. Well, maybe God gave him to us to teach us a lesson, to pay attention. I don't know, but I'm just saying that there's so much wrong with these people that call themselves the religious right. Do you see what I'm saying, Dust? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. I when I was 14, I wanted to be a preacher, and one of my favorite sections in the Bible was Sermon on the Mount. Um, it was pacifism there, but it was also, feed the poor and
Yeah,
do right to others and don't judge people. And there's lots of great things, even from a secular standpoint. That specific passage is
yeah,
it's
yeah.
powerful. Is
It's all
powerful.
about being a good human, you know.
Very powerful section. Um, we're about 20 minutes in. I wanted to do this at least half an hour. Maybe we
Okay.
can come up with some more stuff for another 10 minutes. I'm a little interested. So, and particular to your area, one of the greatest public works projects was the Tennessee Valley Authority, that was instituted under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And there was a large coalition, populist, socialist, that pushed a movement that pushed Franklin Delano Roosevelt to carry out those tasks that gave people hope, electrified much of Appalachia in the South. Would you be in favor of large scale public works programs?
Uh, yeah, in some cases that's good, but as long as they don't turn into monopolies. And,
Okay.
monopolies tend to just turn into big power sources. Like, for example, right now, this, I think last week or week before last, Trump fired the CEO of TVA.
Oh
And
wow.
he fired him because he was hiring a lot of illegal workers and he was paying himself, get this, $8 million a year in salary.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. So that's one good thing Trump did that I'm in favor of. And so there's going to be a new head to TVA, and I believe Trump also said that this time the CEO cannot pay himself more than $500,000 a year.
Right
So,
on.
and that's plenty. Nobody, in my opinion, is worth $8 friggin' million a year, Dusty. Nobody.
Right
So,
on.
you know, TVA has done a lot of good for a lot of people over a lot of years. We get our electricity, cheaper than a lot of people would. So it has done some good things, but it does need some cleaning up, you know. And programs like this, they can be good, but you can get them to go too far if they get too big and too powerful.
Gotcha. So also you're an anti-corruption candidate.
Yes, absolutely.
Is we got maybe another set? Is there anything you want to add? Anything you want to get to the viewers? Looks like we got a few more people joining us now.
Sure. One of the big things that's got me in wanting to run for Congress also is the human trafficking issue. Now, right here in upper East Tennessee, northeast Tennessee, we have an epidemic of parents selling their children into slavery to pay for their drugs. An epidemic right here in northeast Tennessee. Now, I realize this is something that goes on around the world, but to think that that's happening right here in northeast Tennessee is appalling to me. And it doesn't get nearly enough attention as it should. If I'm elected, I'm going to do everything I can to fight that with everything that I can. And I also want to fight the systemic racism. There's plenty of it here, plenty of it, and I want to do what I can to fight that. And something else I've pledged to do, and I'm keep putting it on the record, I don't want people to forget. Now, a U.S. congressperson makes $174,000 a year in salary. I have pledged and I promise to donate 90% of my salary to charities. I will do that. Right now, I live off a small disability check. That's where I come from. And if I donate 90% of my salary, I'll still be doing better than what I'm doing now. So I want to do that. That money will go to charities that help people with the sex trafficking, the victims of the sex trafficking, and help the minorities that are often discriminated against. So that's something that I want to do, and I want that put out there on the record so that everybody can hold me accountable to that if I should win. So that's something I want people to know that's important to me, Dust.
Right on. Um, that is a shocking story in reality that you just exposed. The systemic oppression, exploitation, and lack of services that would compel people in the U.S. That sounds like something you'd hear in a third world.
Yeah,
It's happening
exactly.
right here in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe you can tell us a little more about um, some of the conditions that working folks are going through in your area. How are the jobs? Do they have medical services? How are the local schools?
Yeah, well, right now with COVID-19, everything is all screwed up, of course. But even before that came along, poverty was really, really bad. Workers are treated badly. Tennessee is what is called a right to work state. Now, that's what it's called, but what that really means in essence is any employer can fire any employee at any time they want to without reason. In other words, unions mean nothing. There are some unions in Tennessee, they are worthless. For example, I used to work for a company that had a union, but this union, now you're not going to believe this, but this union actually signed a contract with the company that had a no strike clause in the contract. Can you believe that? What else would a
Wow.
union do? They signed a clause that said we will not strike regardless. Now, it's just the epitome of stupidity to me. You know how that can happen, but that's the way it is in Tennessee. Jobs are scarce even in the best of times, so the employers, they know they can do what they want, and they will come right out and tell you if you don't like it, you can quit. We can have somebody in here to replace you in a couple of hours. So that's the reality of Northeast Tennessee.
Wow. I guess since we're talking about labor, there's what are some of your ideas around the current struggle to keep the post office alive? I see they're removing boxes. I mean, these are good paying union jobs. I mean, what do you think about all this that's going on?
Well, that's all politics. You know, a lot of the Democrats are wanting to go with the mail in ballots to vote. Trump, of course, has decided that that would not be in his favor. So he put one of his rich, multi-millionaire friends in running the post office now. I suppose you know that. And the guy that's running the post office now, he has all kinds of big contracts with companies that are competitors of the United States Postal Service. So they're closing down a lot of these things with the Postal Service, and the post office has already went on record as saying that we cannot process all these mail-in ballots in time, and some of them will not be counted. So this is all Trump doing everything that he can to make sure that he wins in November. He don't get enough help from the Russians, I suppose, so he's got to buy the United States Postal Service. So, don't get me started on that. We can talk for a whole hour on that one if you get me talking about Donald Trump, the chump. I'm not in favor of Donald Trump at all. So, yeah, he's the number one problem in America. And you can quote me on that.
Hmm. Um, okay. That's a position of a lot of my so-called fellow socialists, but
Yeah.
my understanding is this is years of systemic Like the entire system is corrupt, and has been for the rich for decades, and he's just
Yeah,
another symptom, but certainly a very horrible
yeah.
and horrific system. I actually got a question from one of our live viewers, from Tony Garea. Um, what do you think? Have you ever heard of a Mr. Richard o- Ojeda from West Virginia?
No, I haven't.
I think he's a progressive Democrat with similar positions. Um, all right, I think it's a former military, ex-military guy from West Virginia with similar positions that's having similar struggle. Maybe you can check him out as well. Um, let's see, we're getting on to 30 minutes, so I guess let's try to end it maybe on a positive note. I know these are dark times, as you said, but I think I obviously see an inner light from you. You're pushing and trying to make things better for folks, sacrificing your time. Can you just give us a little bit of your hopes and plans for the future?
Yeah, I think America still has a lot of potential and a lot of hope if we get Donald Trump out of the office in November. Unfortunately, if he gets another 4 years, I don't have a whole lot of optimism. Something drastic is going to have to happen. I don't know what that will be. A lot of people around the nation now, as you know, are saying we need a revolution and we need to get rid of the system we have. I'm not ready to say that yet. But to be honest with you, if Trump wins again in November, I'm going to be tempted to think about a lot of other things. So I think we have hope, but I think a lot of it rides on what happens on November the 3rd.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
all right. Thank you. Bye.